and I don't think Bravo is too happy either. And then all this shit came out about her leaking screeners and everything in regards to me. And then there's Teresa. Here she was like building up how Margaret did this, Margaret did that. And then boom, we got hit with the reality that it was really Jackie the whole fucking time. And then she sat there and she's like, oh, I'm good with Jackie. No, don't worry about that. Like, what? We just saw your energy for the last fucking, I don't know how many episodes raging about Margaret involving the ex. Well, you're being told to your fucking face that it was Jackie and you're good. Like, that didn't land either. I know she was shell shocked. She told me she was. She went in there with the narrative of attacking Margaret. It fucking got thrown out the window when Jackie admitted to talking to Vanessa. Teresa lost the game plan. She didn't know what to do. She froze. So she didn't know how to end and wrap it up. And Jen Aydin even told me after everybody left, Dolores and Jennifer sat there at that finale table for like at least 45 minutes. And Teresa said like 2 words. Jen was like, she was so shocked, Gabriella. She didn't know what to say. She said like 2 words to Dolores and me. And then she got home and then we talked on the phone and she was like a whole nother person. She was like in La La Land because she probably realized I sat here for a whole season and pushed against Margaret and that narrative just went out the window because Jackie admitted it. But anyway, all of that went down. Teresa didn't really have a good season either, you know, and then it came out that she was conjuring up storylines for John Fuda and this and that and working with bloggers and screeners and everything. So let's just say they would have let that reunion go down. That reunion, those other cast members, and I would have made sure I was going to give them fucking receipts. Those cast members would have walked into that reunion with receipts against these people. And the network had already seen them anyway, but they could have still presented them. It would have sealed their fate. That would have been it for Teresa and Louie and Jen Aydin. So I almost feel like in a way, no reunion was the network stopping a lot of lawsuits, number one, because these people were coming after other people's businesses. And number two, you know, it was almost a little way for them to protect certain people. So a reunion, like when Andy says, I just, you know, we saw what we saw and I think that was it. But I also think, you know, they were protecting themselves from a lot of legalities that could have went down if they would have held the actual reunion. But an actual reunion would have really did a number on Teresa and Jen.
I mean, this is why they didn't have it. I wonder, which is still, I go back to, I'm shocked that like, because everyone thinks you're now being paid by Margaret. I'm shocked that
my God,
right?
hold on. I got to address that. That one, David. I just saw
people think that
said,
I'm paid by Margaret. By the way, I'm very expensive, but if someone wants to pay me, I'm actually available. Now, I'm not available for the shit that Teresa's paying out there to those people, but I mean, I'm available if anyone wants to call me.
Yeah.
We're not really going to change the narrative of this podcast, but you can pay me for something. But why don't you address that? Because people think you're paid by Margaret now.
So people are like, oh, we were DMing Margaret and Margaret was so convinced that this person was that person and that Melissa's old nose was doing this. And now Margaret's working with them, this and that. It's like, I can't. You know what that is to me? That's a distraction. That is nothing more than a distraction. Their queen has fallen. Her husband's a fucking psychopath. No one is holding back. You've got nothing. And you're sitting here trying to put the narrative that Melissa's old nose is being paid by Margaret Josephs. They cannot swallow the fucking pill. Like they can't accept the reality that Margaret is vindicated. Teresa was played by Jackie. Louie's a psycho. They were working with bloggers. The show's fucking done and over. They just cannot accept it. That's why they're still saying Melissa Gorga had sex with the fucking cake boss. That she was being with Nick Baroda, that I'm being paid by Margaret. Like, do you guys recall the most brutal fucked up shit I did to Margaret from calling her like I think I was comparing her to the old man on Poltergeist. I was insulting her in the worst ways. I was calling her pancake titties. Like I body shamed this woman and I'm very sorry for it. I have personally apologized to her. I did the worst to Melissa and Margaret out of everybody. Even John Fuda. I did a lot to John Fuda with Brittany, but I did so much to Margaret. You really think Margaret hired me 2 years ago and I did these things to Margaret? And I was even part of ruining the Walmart deal. You think that she would have been cool with that? I mean, you really expect someone to believe that she hired me and I sat here and like harassed her family for so fucking long just so that they can stick me in that camp? Like, it's crazy. That person needs medication, like, and a therapist and a psychologist. Like,
No,
they're,
you're not being paid by anyone. That I know. You know who, when I was friends with her, you know who Margaret used to tell me that she was convinced that you were, that Melissa Zolnose was? Do you know
who?
who? She used to think it was, is his name Dave? I forgot. What she used to think it was Laura's husband.
That's right. She used to always accuse me of being
She used
Dave
to
Jensen.
always, we used to be out to dinner and she'd be like, it's definitely Dave. I'm positive. And she was like, David, I know everything. And I'm
Yeah,
not even
and that
knocking Margaret.
Instagram.
I'm telling you, she truly used to tell me she was convinced it was him.
Yes, and that lunatic on Instagram likes to say, "Oh, Margaret did say that the RHONJ TB was Gabriella, and now she was following her. Like, oh my God, the conspiracy." And she's talking to Gabriella. You know what? I have so much to show these people. If they want to talk to me, let them fucking talk to me. I I owe the story that I'm telling to be told. Like, I owe it to myself, first of all, David, to like set me free of all this shit.
I
But I
told you
also
it's
owe it
very
to the
freeing when you just don't, when
it
you
is.
actually just
It
open
is.
your mouth and the truth comes out and like you don't care and you
Yeah,
don't
it
have a
feels good.
side and some things are against this one, some things are against this one.
I
You just wake up and you live your life. You don't have to plan out what you're going
yeah.
to say. You don't have
I
to edit things.
I owe it to myself to like set myself free of all of it and to tell the story. And it was again my story to tell. I lived it. I was talking to these people. It was part of my journey as well. So I have every fucking right to speak on it. But I also owe it to the people who I was trying to ruin to tell them the truth. Like to say, hey, Margaret, you know how you were suspecting Louie of being behind the Walmart deal being sabotaged? Guess what, honey? Totally true. You were right. Elisa, the PR lady they hired, I was on that too. We were giving stories about that video, we were doing this. I was DMing Walmart. Like we were on a whole campaign. Your suspicions were right. Here are the receipts. Here are the voicemails. Here are this. Here's that. Here's the emails. Look at it all. It's yours. Have it. So for these people who are like, oh my God, Melissa's old nose is more than likely talking to Margaret. Well, no fucking shit. Why wouldn't I talk? I'm literally telling you guys right now, I have no problem talking with the cast because in my journey, it involved hurting them. And they are very much like more than welcome to have at any of my receipts. So again, David, like a reunion would have been a shit show because I would have made sure, like, Louie said Bo Dietl had a file on everyone. Well, Gabriella would have handed everyone a file and it would have been shit we were doing to each and every single one of them. They would have walked into that reunion with that.
I
But anyway, those
wonder
people,
if,
you got to drown them out because they're distractions. They really are just a
yeah,
distraction.
no, I drowned them all out. I think it's funny. I wonder if there was a reunion, if you would have heard from a Margaret or, I mean, probably Margaret more than Melissa. I wonder. I don't know. Maybe not, but I would think maybe. There would have been a lot of manila envelopes if there was a reunion. That's definitely for sure. And then
Thing. We haven't seen receipts.
I think you would have gotten a call, maybe.